Hey guys, Jeff here. Hope you're all doing well. I saw something pretty interesting the other day, and none of the major mountain bike media are reporting on it, so I figured I could do a quick heads up and let you all know about it. The Secretary of the Interior, David Bernhardt,
Hi, I'm Secretary of the Interior David Bernhardt.
has instructed the BLM to better incorporate e-bikes into their management strategy. I believe the official quote is Secretary of the Interior David Bernhardt's call for the BLM and other interior boroughs to expand access on public lands to e-bikes. So the BLM has published its preliminary documents on this and its preliminary strategy, and there's an open public comment period until early June, so all of you can go onto the site and leave a comment. I linked to the BLM's comment page down below in the YouTube description, and I saw that one other YouTube channel, Bolton Bike, something like that, he did a pretty good video going through all this as well. The document the BLM is seeking comments on is asking about how to incorporate e-bikes, and it looks to me like they're going to allow a lot of more local areas to make the final call and whether or not they're going to actually incorporate e-bikes into their trail networks, which to me sounds like it makes sense. But at the same time, there's some weird biases and stuff, so now's a good chance to make your voice be heard. I don't want to tell you guys what to say. I don't want to tell you what to think. That's not why I'm here today, but I did recently post a video comparing an e-bike, I got my Class 1 Intense Taser right behind me, to an actual motorcycle, and the difference is pretty substantial. So I read through the document that the BLM has published, and to me it sounds kind of like their strategy is going to be somewhat similar to what's happening in BC provincial parks, where Class 1 e-bikes, like this Intense Taser, are no longer classified in the general umbrella of motorized vehicles, but they're kind of accepted from that, and they get classified as a similar traditional bicycle. Class 1 e-bikes like this Taser here are by far the most widely commercially available, and that's because there are some places to ride them. A Class 2, which is a throttle assist up to 20 miles an hour, and Class 3, which is 28 mile an hour pedal assist. There aren't many places to ride Class 2 and Class 3 in comparison to Class 1s, so none of the manufacturers are really pumping out those Class 2, Class 3s nearly as much as Class 1. I rode the Taser up at Vedder Mountain, right across the border in Chilliwack, BC, and that's a great example of where they allow Class 1 e-bikes on the same trails as pedal bikes, and they go so far as to not allow e-bikes on the actual motorized trails. I think that's pretty funny and probably a good idea because the Class 1 e-bikes are so slow, you don't want to have them on the same trails as real motorcycles. One thing I want to point out is I can actually go a lot faster on my regular pedal bike downhill than I can go on the Class 1 e-bike. The e-bike is really good when you have a super steep hill that on a pedal bike you would just be struggling to get up at 3 to 4 miles an hour. Then you hop on the Class 1 e-bike and you can zip up that thing at 5, 6, maybe 7 miles an hour. So you're not going at breakneck speed, but you're getting up that climb a lot quicker. It's a different experience, and I don't know what the BLM trails are like where you're located. Here where I'm at in Western Washington, we don't have really any BLM managed land, so I'm seeing all this from the perspective as someone who would have to travel to ride these trails. And then on super chunky baby head trails that are just a nightmare to pedal up on a regular bike, the e-bike with its extra bit of torque there can get through that stuff a lot more comfortably. So in Arizona, I've ridden some pretty rough baby head sections that are no fun on a pedal bike, but on an e-bike, they go from being no fun to tolerable and sometimes downright enjoyable. So you'd be able to ride your bike on trails that currently just don't really fit for the regular bicycle. Of course, this is inherently political. It could be why none of the major media are reporting on it. Politics is really, at the end of the day, just groups of people making a decision. And I mean, someone has to say where we can ride e-bikes or not. Otherwise, it's just going to be a total melee. So, I don't know. This probably isn't the perfect solution, but it's a solution. It's what we got right now.
As an entire nation buries its head in sand. The idea has swept the nation, but where will we find enough sand for everyone?
We can totally bury our heads in the sand and pretend that e-bikes don't change anything, that they're not real or whatever, but that's not the reality. People ride them, people have a lot of fun on them, it's a growing segment, and it's a whole new genre of bike. It's never going to replace your regular pedal bike, at least it definitely won't for me. The e-bikes appeal to a different segment, so the moto crowd really likes the e-bike. They see no drawbacks to using a tiny, small little motor like that. So a lot of bike manufacturers have actually opened up power sports, motorsports dealers to sell e-bikes because traditional bike shops don't want to do it, and the moto crowd wants to buy these and ride them. And there's a lot of moto clubs in the United States. Where I live back in Santa Cruz, the Salinas Ramblers, up here in Bellingham, the Mount Baker Motorcycle Club. A lot of these clubs are 20 to 50 years old, and a lot of them actually have their own property to ride on. So there's a big community out there, moto heads, that have figured out land to ride on, and they want to ride e-bikes, but it's hard to actually buy them, and that they're kind of limited to the same stuff they've been riding. So we could work together and responsibly grow the use of e-bikes and help grow the entire sport of mountain biking. 'Cause I don't see a lot of the major motorcycle manufacturers getting into the e-bike market in a significant way. Yamaha's tried, Honda has the tech to do it, but why haven't they done it yet? I think could be a boon for our sport if we handle this responsibly, and it seems like what the BLM's doing here would be a big step forwards. I know across the border in BC, I've got a lot more opportunities to ride the Taser than I've got down here in Bellingham, and that's pretty cool. I'd rather ride the North Shore on my traditional pedal bike, and there's some gnarly trails out there, up and down, that will be way more fun on this bike. So it's a different experience. If you guys are so inclined, leave them a comment about how this would affect your local area, how they could best do it. The BLM has been instructed to incorporate e-bikes, so leaving a super negative comment saying that's terrible isn't going to be probably that effective. There's some guidelines for how to best leave a comment, and they want you to specifically point to case studies, scientific studies, and particular segments of their actual legislation to be as specific with their comment as possible. And they said that one custom comment is far more important than 1,000 form letter comments. So I found that interesting. I've also got a link below to the best comment writing strategies from the BLM. When you leave a comment here, you need to have your street address be published. So I'm actually not going to leave a comment because I don't want my street address out there on the internet. I hope you guys are doing well. It's been fun here in quarantine, working on the RC track up in my backyard, working on some mini moto tracks. Top secret, I got my daughter a Class 2 e-bike. Basically, it's a mini moto with a throttle that goes 14 miles an hour. So I'm trying to make some trails for that thing. And I'm hoping to get one for myself here. I just don't want to spend a lot of money on something I can only ride in my backyard. And that wouldn't be affected by any of this BLM e-bike legislation stuff. So completely unrelated. Cool, guys. Thanks for joining me. Have a great weekend, and maybe we'll all have more places to ride e-bikes together in a few more months' time. See you around.